trust only in the Force.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order's release is quickly approaching, and if you're behind on what to expect, I'm here to keep you informed with 10 things you need to know about Jedi Fallen Order.
Revenge of the Jedi. Coming next summer to a theater in your galaxy.
Starting off at number 10, despite revenge not being the Jedi way, there is an in-game mechanic that is solely focused on revenge of the Jedi.
The pain! More!
As stated in an official press release on StarWars.com, one of the game's cooler combat-related systems encourages you to hunt down the enemy that signed your death warrant. Upon respawning, any damage dealt to your executioner will replenish your lost XP as well as your health and force meters. It's a great inclusion that drives the gameplay, while also weaving these mini revenge tales into the larger narrative.
Push harder!
This element, paired with the overly communicative stormtrooper chatter / smack talk, will make for an easy mark when dishing out a side of revenge.
Can't take your hit? Barely noticed.
I'm sure you haven't forgotten. I was the one who murdered your father.
No, I haven't.
With an ex-Jedi hunted by Inquisitors, it's not hard to draw parallels between cult classic series Jedi Knight featuring Kyle Katarn and Fallen Order. However, what separates the two titles, other than saber combat / skills, which I'll touch on later, is the Force.
Stay where you are.
Specifically, it is confirmed that Cal, although foregoing his Jedi status in lieu of hiding from the Empire, will not be able to utilize dark side powers. Respawn Entertainment confirmed the decision on the EA E3 2019 stage. Characters that will appear in the game are, quote, all gonna live in other places, as gameplay director Stig Asmussen explained, meaning there's canonical obligations. It goes back to the fact that Cal's authentic and he has to fill a certain role so he can be used in other places. Then Respawn Entertainment boss Vince Zampella sealed off any more potential dark side speculation with 5 words. This is a Jedi story. Although a dark alignment would spell further replayability, see KOTOR and the Jedi Knight series, Respawn have actually tackled this with 2 other options for longevity.
I want you to remember, son, when you're at the academy, how very proud I am of you.
It's a single-player story game. We worked really closely. Yes.
Hey, Vince,
No multiplayer, no microtransactions. It's a story game.
Although a somewhat bizarre bragging right, after a near revolt from fans re microtransactions in Battlefront 2, EA wisely pivoted on their stance and fans can breathe easy after Vince Zampella confirmed there is no multiplayer and no microtransactions. And thankfully, according to Respawn, at no point will this change.
I know you don't trust me. But we have a common enemy and a common cause.
Many of us did notice that for as much lightsaber slicing that game has going on, there's a surprising lack of limbs coming off. Your slices just leave a burning mark on stormtrooper bodies, and it turns out there's a good explanation for that. Good-ish.
Something synonymous with lightsabers is cleaving off a limb or two, which games of yore have capitalized on for great effect, I might add, and satisfaction when hewing off a cheeky sword arm for the collection. A noticeably lacking element in Fallen Order was the fact you cannot decapitate or delimb enemies. Well, kind of. Some fans were upset with the lack of carving ability, especially as it's been prevalent in previous titles, and you'd only be reminded of this when you're cutting up creatures throughout the game. Without official word, it was then assumed that the marketing boys at some level had nixed the idea for rating purposes and accessibility to a wider audience, as it's much more visceral to see a person get sliced up versus a creature. But supposedly IGN staff had a direct source from Lucasfilm explain that it may not be fully absent in the game, just used sparingly.
The official word is that droids and creatures are fair game for having their legs and arms lopped off, but not humans. And we can blame Disney and the Lucasfilm branding folks for that. One of the lead designers on the game explained to me that cutting off a limb or a head is used sparingly as powerful moments in the games and the films, so Lucas wanted to keep those moments powerful.
First thing is making a lightsaber feel authentic. Usually that means enemies have to die quickly, pretty much. We don't want to be hitting an enemy 10 times with a lightsaber.
In an exclusive interview with Game Informer, lead combat designer Jason DeHarris succinctly broke down the combat elements to expect in-game.
Anybody with a weapon that can block a lightsaber has a block meter. So every time you hit them, they will try to guard your lightsaber, but their block meter will go down. So once you get their block meter down to 0, then their guard is essentially broken and you're allowed to get a real lightsaber hit on them. That's kind of the key thing we wanted to do to make a lightsaber feel like a lightsaber. Like the player's still making progress by hitting them and making contact, but at the same time, you're not hitting their flesh until they're block broken. We want to look at the combat system as, instead of doing the maximum number of hits against an enemy, we want to make the player feel empowered by doing the least amount of hits. So one way to do that is with the parry system. So if you time an incoming attack at the right time, it allows you to pretty much shortcut an enemy and kill them in maybe one hit. So we have like a good amount of the cast where you could literally kill in one swing if you parry them. If you tap evade, you'll get a small sidestep. So if you want to play it very timing based and use more technique, then you're allowed to sidestep and then attack immediately. But if you want to just get out of danger, then you could double tap circle and you could evade out of danger. So there's kind of that option how you want to play it. Do you want to play it really risky or do you want to just play it safe?
It's a Jedi!
According to GameSpot, Fallen Order boasts 4 difficulties for players of varying skill and replayability. On the story difficulty, Cal takes little damage, you have plenty of time to parry, and enemies aren't all that aggressive, even if their personality dictates they're a confident trooper.
Hostile, get ready!
Go to Jedi Knight, and that parry window doesn't change, but Cal takes more damage and enemies are more aggressive. Jedi Master is where you will finally see a bump in terms of the parry window. Jedi Grandmaster sees boosts to all 3 categories, forcing you to perfectly time your parries for any chance of holding your own in fights against highly aggressive enemies that do large amounts of damage. Further elaborating on this, in an interview with GameSpot, level designer Jeff Majors said, "So one of our core tenets of the difficulty tuning was not changing the number of hit points enemies have based on difficulty. On Grandmaster, you can still kill a stormtrooper in 1 hit. What we're tuning is the enemy aggression. We're tuning the size of the parry window, the difficulty of these abilities to pull off. There's a really rewarding mastery loop in those higher difficulties."
Are you shaking, Jedi? Keep going. I'll rendezvous with you shortly.
My favorite Star Wars in-game mechanic is deflecting blaster bolts back at enemies. An in-game mechanic that I first experienced years ago in Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. The crux of this ability is simple yet addicting. This is achieved easily in Power Battles and LEGO games by a simple formula. The closer you let a bolt come to your body, the more likely you are to deflect it back at enemies. The trade-off is, if you are too late, it will hit you. Too early, and you pat it off harmlessly in a random direction. With all that being said, this mechanic, in a word, is addictive. And it's great to see that Fallen Order have taken it on, because nothing feels quite as good as using an enemy's own attack against themselves.
By the book. Watch where you aim! I can get him. It's the Jedi!
Not only will you rebuild your famously broken lightsaber over the course of Fallen Order, it turns out that some fans weren't happy with the design of Jedi Fallen Order's lightsaber and bluish hue, and developer Respawn has stated that they intend to fix it ahead of the game's release. We made a mistake on that one, and since then we've fixed it, said Fallen Order game director Stig in an interview with Game Informer. So that was very fair feedback, very fair criticism, and we've tweaked that. We've also tweaked the shape of the lightsaber blade a little bit as well too. You can see the difference right away. If you don't like blue or want a bit of variety, it should be noted too that Andrew Reiner of Game Informer confirmed that blade color, design, and more will be fully customizable in Fallen Order.
You can't save them. No! Not from the Empire. Not from the dark side. Not from me.
A bizarre fact about The Fallen Order is that it originally wasn't intended to be a Star Wars game. Speaking with GameSpot following the game's unveiling during EA Play, Asmussen said that the unnamed original project caught the attention of various people at EA, the parent company of Respawn Entertainment. Before working on Star Wars, we were working on a different game, and it had basically the same pillars that we have in this game, which is thoughtful combat, agile exploration, beyond human, and Metroidvania level design, he said. And that's something that when we were working on this other game and we demoed it, people at EA saw it and said, there's something in there that you could easily see turning into a Star Wars game. My background is melee action, so when they came to us and were like, we really like the game you're working out and we want to do it at some point, but how would you guys feel about Star Wars? We were like, great. And a lot of the core functionality that we were building for the other game, a lot of the fundamentals were able to transition over. So we always start with, what is the game? How does it feel? How does it play? What are the mechanics before really figuring out the story? It just so happened this thing we were working on translated really well.
Now, when I was watching your EA Play stream, we kept getting skill points, but we never saw the skill tree. Tell me about the progression.
Yes, we have a traditional skill tree in the game that allows you to upgrade your abilities as well as your force powers.
Of course.
Fallen Order has a few confirmed ways to unlock abilities and cosmetics. First spied briefly in the extended gameplay demo, the skill tree is accessible at meditation points throughout the game. Skill points earned via XP can be distributed to enhance force powers and skills, which will slightly affect playstyles according to Zampella. E.g., he said that Stig likes to roll an aggressive style versus his more defensive playthrough. Coupled with 4 difficulties, secrets to find, a plethora of lightsaber unlocks, worlds to explore, and different wearable costumes throughout the game.
Glad you're all right.
Yeah, good to see you too. This place is a dump.